I just want to thank everyone for joining us on this live broadcast today. And I really, really want to show some gratitude and appreciation for Colt Brown, owner of Empire Inc., for showing me such hospitality, getting me out here to Appleton, Wisconsin, and giving me a tour of the Empire facility, truly showing me how much he appreciates the practitioner by showing me around and making me feel confident that he is truly out for us as tattoo artists. And, for my followers, they probably know who you are. And of course, your followers know who you are too. But if you wouldn't mind, Colt, I'd love for you to kind of give us a little bit of a background about yourself.
Sure. So, I'm Colt Brown, and I own Empire Inks and Timeless Tattoos. I've been tattooing for 20 years, about roughly. And I opened Empire in, I think, 2011 and Timeless in 2006.
As a tattoo artist, obviously, you want good quality products, right? And that kind of probably spurred you into creating Empire Inks. And then you're also an avid painter. Was there something that went into inspiration for creating these? Because also pigment.
I run at a little bit slower of a pace when I tattoo, my hand speed and everything like that. So I did find other gray washes to be a little bit powerful and a little too strong and dark and everything when I was tattooing. So I did want a little bit lighter of a value scale in there. So it's obviously a little, just like everybody else, they would use the drop system and everything. But I had some experience, working with oils and everything like that. So I made my own oil paint for a long time. And so I kind of took some of that and then just trial and error and learning it and trying to figure it out, really,
Well, and I love that word. That's a perfect segue in trial and error. I mean, how easy is it, or was it, to make tattoo pigment?
Not easy at all. I thought it was, I thought it was just like tattooing, where tattooing, it looks easy, and then you get into it and you're like, oh boy, you know what I mean? Like, this is way harder than I thought, kind of deal. And that's kind of what it was for learning how to mill the pigment and everything like that. It looks easy, and then you start getting into the chemistry side of it, and it's not like oil paint where it's just going on canvas, it's going into the skin. So there's considerably more to it than I considered in the beginning, but we adapted and figured it out and hired some chemists that helped us and everything like that. So it's been quite the journey so far, for sure.
Well over a dozen years now.
Yeah.
And you've got a beautiful facility, which did do some good recording. We'll be sharing some of the process here, which truly feel privileged to be able to go through that, even take part a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, I do feel like you and Empire Inc. really cares about the practitioner, and with that, you're doing more for like your artists, and you have other events like retreats and stuff like that. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So last year we started the retreat, and we wanted to kind of put on we call it an unconventional convention, and I wanted to take all the best parts of the convention without kind of the work side of it, I guess. Because I always enjoyed go to people's rooms after the convention. And that's really where the magic happens, where you get the good conversations, and those are the memorable moments for me. Not when I'm just sitting there tattooing kind of deal and competing with everybody kind of deal. So we wanted to have something for education, and it's awesome. We basically just hang out for 5 days, and it's 20 of our artists. They're all about the same. We try to invite everybody right around the same level, and that helps the talks go a little bit easier when we're doing the educational stuff. We don't have to worry about explaining how we put on a stencil or what voltage that we run our machines at or anything of the sorts. So I thought it was important to bring in this level artist and try to raise everybody that way, I guess.
It almost sounds like you're trying to cater to the higher level of tattoos, higher level of education. Right?
Yeah, not just the higher level, but leveling up. So it doesn't matter what level they're at, as long as the group of people are roughly around the same level, and then they can share good information. So if you're at this level and this person's at this level, you still might have different information, but you don't have to dumb it down and talk to them like, I run my machines at 8.5 volts or whatever. That doesn't that helps younger level artists, and we'll do retreats for that kind of stuff.
And I mean, do you guys get into like business, work-life balance, or mostly?
Absolutely, yeah. It's really any higher level discussion that we can think of, and we talk about. I don't know. It was awesome. We talked about everything last year, and people would kind of segue into little groups and stuff like that, have our own little discussions. And we do a big group discussion, and we had people like lead the discussion. Michael Perry showed up and kind of started talking about some stuff, and people were able to ask him questions. And this year we have Sean Cheatham putting on a workshop basically for us. He's an amazing painter and a tattooer. He studied under Carlos Torres. And just it's really incredible. We went paintballing, and we went to galleries and talked about paintings and stuff like that. It was really cool because it wasn't about tattooing, but it was tattoo artists, and we could talk about tattooing and relate in other ways.
At the last Explorer conference we went to last year, after the presenters, there was usually a Q&A session, and I noticed that a lot of tattooers were asking, there's more in-depth, high-level questions about business, how to manage their work life, also some questions about dealing with compliance.
Yeah.
Which, do you think is that a topic you guys ever dig into? Have to do with regulation?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's important to get the artist's opinion on it. They're going to be directly affected by it, and it did give us a chance to kind of see. I'm obviously a tattoo artist myself, but I'm also the manufacturing side of it. So to kind of get their perspective on it and how it's going to affect them, and what they're looking for out of it, and everything like that, and what their questions were, and what their curiosities are, and everything. So be able to help them understand what's going on. That was really nice.
But and that kind of segues into one of the main reasons why I came out to Wisconsin, to kind of talk to you more about the regulation, right?
Yeah.
And for those of your followers who don't know me, I'd like to give a quick introduction. My name is Ed Shaw. I've been tattooing for 23 years, and I own Archetype Tattoo in Albuquerque, New Mexico. For the last decade, I've spent working with my state of New Mexico in regulations. I had actually went to bat and was working to protect tattooers from over-regulations and helping provide regulations that make sense for our industry. And during that period in time, it was very difficult to get anything done, right, legislatively. So we had to unite with our local tattoo artists, and we created the Guild of Ethical Tattooists, probably a good 20 tattoo shops in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that were able to come together and sign petitions for us to lobby a bill, which was Senate Bill 275 to create the Board of Body Art Practitioners. Before that, we were regulating the barbers and cosmetologists. It really makes sense, but difficult.
Sure.
So, trying to regulate tattoo artists through barbers did make sense. We used our local community to come together, and we're able to get that bill passed the first year through, and created a board for tattoo artists, body piercers, and cosmetic practitioners by the professionals in the industry for those within the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And up until 2019, I eventually retired, and then that pandemic happened, and life changed, the world changed, and we all kind of got caught up with being stuck at home. I think you mentioned being home painting a lot, and kind of enjoying that peace away from the world. But while we were away, right, things were happening. And one of the biggest reasons why I'm here is to talk about the Modernization of Cosmetic Regulation Act. That was the bill that was signed into law on December 29th, 2022. And I'd like to really emphasize the fact that it is now a law. Yeah, this is something that was being talked about for the past decade and such. And I know that you've had some experience a little bit with CTS.
Correct.
Understanding that it was on the horizon, but I think, as you mentioned before, kind of crept up on you, or crept up on us.
Right.
Right. And I'd like to kind of dissect it a little bit, kind of share it with your followers, any of mine who haven't fully understood the breakdown of what it is. But the Modernization of Cosmetic Regulation Act is affectionately called the MOCRA. And it essentially takes everything that could be sprinkled, sprayed, rubbed, applied to the body, inserted for beautification is now a cosmetic. So that means us.
Right.
We put things on people's body to make it. So we're now a cosmetic, a part of the cosmetic industry, which effectively allows the FDA to now scrutinize all of our facilities, all of our products, and all of our ingredient lists of everything we use. And it's really important to emphasize that it encompasses all products, right? Everything. So that's not just tattoo inks, but that's also aftercare ointments, intro products, lidocaine,
Needles, everything. Yeah.
anything that's touching that body, right? We have to, it's going to be scrutinized by the FDA. And as I like to say, we as practitioners, it's not a bad thing, right? To want to know that we're using safe products, because we're the ones that are, putting these things on into their clients' bodies. The problem arises when the government, the FDA, and the Secretary of Human Services is going to be creating rules for our industry without any facts to base those rules off of. So when they're going to try to create a rule for something like ink, they don't have a lot of scientific data on the ingredients that go into our inks.
Right.
And I use the example of Europe because that's a prime example of what can happen when the government, which we're talking about the European Parliament, doesn't have data to base rules for tattooing off of. They're going to look for input about our ingredients, but they don't have specific information about tattoo uses. And just like what's going on in America today, the government in Europe was looking for some feedback from the tattoo industry, especially the ink manufacturers, about what was some tattoo specific science related to the ingredients that they were using, but they didn't have any feedback. So being that they didn't get any feedback, they reached out to REACH, the Registration, Evaluation, Authorization of Restriction of Chemicals organization, and started utilizing guidelines for the ingredients in our pigments based off of other toxicological results, other toxicological research. Meaning, like, one prime example is titanium dioxide. Europe, they were actually trying to make titanium dioxide illegal. Now, they're basing the science off of, and this is a little bit more of a dumbed down version, but if you took a gallon of titanium dioxide and injected it in your body, sure, it would be dangerous, right?
Correct.
But we as tattoo artists, we put a small, minute amount into the dermal layer in inert state at a time, right? And, what else contains titanium dioxide?
Pretty much everything, yeah. Anything opacity, anything that's white, bread, just all kinds of
bread, milk, creamer, candy, chocolates, right? And we're able to ingest it safely. And I use that other analogy. If you took a gallon of potassium and injected it in your body or drank it, bleach to kill you, but a small amount we need to live. So the European guidelines are based off of research that's not subjective to tattooing. And they've created these guidelines and how they must follow. And now they're left with a list of tolerances that they're able to use in their ingredients that are super low, right? We know that the European tattoo artists are a big fan of the pigment. Right? A lot of them aren't particularly using it much. Most tattoo artists in Europe are still using our tattoo pigments, right?
Right.
And this has created kind of an issue, because now it's making most of the tattoo process illegal in Europe, right? They're creating this kind of illegal activity. And the one thing that's most alarming for us and the MOCA is that in the back of the bill, page 3597, I believe, line 25 through 27, it mentions that the FDA or Secretary of Human Services can utilize guidelines and format regulations from international other states, including the European. Right? So there's this vacuum now. Right? They've created this law, and they need to create rules for us, and they want input. But if they don't get the input, they can look elsewhere for it, like Europe.
Sure.
And I think I've said before, I'm not a doomsdayer. Right? I'm not trying to say, oh, we need to be careful because we're going to end up like Europe, because I believe we can totally avoid that. And I believe we have a great opportunity to avoid that in a couple of different reasons, because of a few different reasons. First off, we know about this. Now, this just happened December 29th, 2022. It just is just a few months ago. There's an entire year while they're getting the manufacturers to start producing ingredients lists, as well as come into compliance with inspections by the FDA. And so we have time to come together and unify ourselves, right? Unify ourselves so that way we can bring the proper data to the FDA when it comes time for them to start creating rules. And we do have an opportunity that Europe didn't have. We have organizations like the APT, right? the Alliance of Professional Tattooists. You're familiar with this organization, yeah? You've been tattooing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they're a 30-plus year nonprofit organization built by tattoo artists that have been supporting tattoo artists for decades. And because of this long-standing good credit, so to speak, they've been consistent for decades. The government does recognize them as a strong constituent base. So when the government wants to interact with tattooing, they still recognize the APT. And the APT does have a place with AFDO, the Association of Food and Drug Officials Body Art Committee. And this is a governmental committee that directly informs the FDA. This is a group that's tattoo-based. It does have a body art committee representation. It has some APT members, which myself and a few others now sit on, some ex-FDA agents, as well as a few other peripheral industry leaders. And we work to create rules that make sense that we'll then inform the FDA with. The hurdle that lies with that is, and I'm sure you could recognize the value that if one person speaks up about something, you get so much input. You only get so much compliance or so much clout from that one person or a small group. But it's different when a person represents an industry. Right. And I think we're at that point now where the tattoo industry needs to come together as a whole, or at least a greater number, when we're going to start creating some of these rules or start providing information to create some of these rules.
Right.
Now, I've also been working with other industry members to create a way that we can communicate better with each other. And it's on the Discord platform, which you also have a presence on that as well.
Yep.
And we've created the body art regulation support system. So that's like a communication device where we have tabs or channels, which break apart, talks about APT, has a copy of the MOCR living there. It has information about AFDO, some science that we're starting to dig into, a little bit what's going on in Europe. And then it has tabs in our channels for states, each individual state. And I think there was somebody who asked a question a little bit ago about there's like a Vegas tattoo guild. Right? This is a way that they can connect with people in their state in a centralized location. Right?
Sure.
If they're interested about learning more about this guild, this is a great place to start. This is also a great place to learn about what's going on regulatory-wise in states. So that way kind of help cut down on confusion and confusion leads to fear, and fear leads to, not people trying to resist things, right?
Sure.
So there's this place that our members can come together and start to know what's going on legitimately, or know what's going on from sources that are credible. Right? It's not from hearsay.
Right, and it's nice that we can finally have a way to answer people's questions very easily and not very confusing, and that was part of the problem before, is that I think that everybody's been hearing about this, but they're kind of confused on what's happening, what it is, and who's it going to affect, who's all involved, and everything like that. So I like the fact that you guys put it on Discord for people to go to be able to just get their answers nice and easily. You know what I mean? And it's made by tattoo artists, and there's not that weird language that you just don't understand kind of deal, and somewhere that you can ask questions and somewhere that you can have a voice at the same time.
No, let me say that. Yeah, because regulation jargon is a foreign language.
Oh yeah,
I've trained.
Absolutely.
And also a great place that people, not only can ask those questions, but you're right, also voice themselves, give us their opinion. In the States, we do ask that people, if they do have specific contact information, to say, like the Las Vegas Guild, or maybe they have a cooperative inspector they like to engage with who's body art friendly, or a legislator there that would be willing to help out the body art practitioners. This is a great place that they can share that information. Because I'm a member of one of the founding members of Tattoo Smart's Launchpad. So this is an online discourse for vetted professionals to come together and have open discussions about everything tattoo-wise. Mm-hmm. And this was what really stimulated the fact that, coming from 10 years of working in state regulations, and I'm sure at least before, just saying, I'm working with state regulators, most tattooers
Okay.
Tattoo police, you're part, and it's realized that, man, I was there stepping up for you. I was there in between the state government and your industry, and making sure that they weren't posing things upon you. But it was very difficult to relay that information. But being a part on Launchpad, I started to realize that there were a lot of people out there there are these factions and groups and guilds that are out there. There are these people who are proactive in their spaces, and they do feel like little islands. And this is another place to start bringing them together, so that way they can share their insight, experiences, successes, failures too, what things did work, and how we can all kind of come together and move forward. Because that's where we're at right now. I mean, the industry's looking to adult, right?
All right. Yeah, and that's the important part of it, is I think we talked about this before, is that we are maturing into a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the government's going to look at us and they're going to say, hey, we need to start regulating you guys a little bit more and everything like that. We need to make sure that there's so many more people being tattooed. We need to make sure that they're safe and everything. And the politicians don't know anything about tattooing, and they're probably somewhat ignorant to it. They're probably even somewhat against it, or maybe they are friendly to it, and they just don't know that much information for it. So I think it is important for us to understand that, because we are maturing into this legit business world where the government is starting to take us serious, and which is kind of nice, but that's going to take it's going to come with certain responsibilities, and they want to make sure that we're going to be safe with it, and that we are doing our homework, and we are experts in our own fields and stuff like that. So I kind of like that they are open-minded, and they're asking, for our opinion on things, and they want us to be involved in everything, and then they got to know who to talk to, and they got to know who to listen to, and who's, and that's kind of a nice thing about the tattoo industry, is that we do get to kind of overcome these, like I said before, we've always been underestimated. That is the kind of the thing about the tattoo industry, is people just always looked past us, and that's what made us half of us tattoo artists, is that people just They're like, they're nothing, whatever. And but we're legit, and a lot of us take our business very serious, and it's very interesting to see how, being part of the CTS, and I got to meet all these guys, and they're very professional, and they're very serious, and they speak intelligently, and they look professional. But we still look like tattoo artists, but we're not showing up like children. We're not kicking and screaming and throwing tantrums and picketing and saying, oh, we'll be pirates and all this stuff. Like, we're saying, okay, we want to be a part of this, and we want to be adults about it, and show you that we can have a say in this, and nobody knows us better than us anyways. You know what I mean? So I think they do deserve to hear our voice, but we gotta make sure that the people speaking for us are the right people that should be, and they're showing up professional, and they're speaking with intelligence and not out of emotion and everything. They're not, we're not trying to just scare people or anything like that. It really is just adulting, and this is a young industry for the most part. Most of the people that are actively tattooing are younger, and they're excited, and their job is really to like push the industry into that adult world. And then we have the older guys that have been around, that have seen the things happen, and we're noticing the things happening in Europe, and we're like, hey, we got to make sure that we don't fall for the same tricks. We got to make sure that we're protecting our own, and that we have a say in our own regulations. I don't want to be regulated. We already hate being regulated. Our shops are regulated by restaurant, health departments, and they treat us like a restaurant. And so we've educated them and said, hey, we're not a restaurant, and this is, I remember one of the health inspectors picking up my ultrasonic cleaner lid and being like, oh, and I'm like, you shouldn't do that, but we get to educate them and teach them about tattooing and stuff like that, and they've been pretty open-minded to it. I think this is the first step for the government actually like listening to us, and actually being open-minded and saying, all right, let's hear you guys, why don't you guys help us and talk with us, and we'll work through it together. But if we don't say anything, or they don't know who to talk to, or there's no organized one voice or anything like that, I don't want to see the results of that. I'd rather, have a say in it personally.
Yeah. And I mean, you nailed it. I mean, we're a multi-billion-dollar industry. I know in America alone, the recent poll I read is like 46% of Americans. Like, it never
right.
All Americans, half of us
are
tattooed, and half of that percentage is heavily tattooed.
Yeah.
And there's this push in this industry to grow and expand, and never has it been, and you've been tattooed 23 years, right? Never has it been to the point where we can buy cars and homes and, have a retirement, and really is it taking care of us. And it's become so huge that you're right. Now the government's like, okay, well, now you're legitimate enough of a sign. Now because of the nature of us embedding foreign material into the dermis of the sharp object, we're a regulated industry. But instead of just putting a collar on us and yelling at us, they're like, hey, how can we work together? Because dealing with state government for 10 years, I realized that the government's not out to get us. They're actually just overworked, underpaid, understaffed, right? And they're just charged with a job. And if we can give them information, if we can give them what they need, they won't try to find it anywhere else.
Yeah, we don't want them outsourcing to anybody. We are the experts in our own field, and we definitely want to have the loudest voice when it comes to the regular. And I work directly with my chemist when I'm working, for the inks and stuff like that. So I listen to them in their field, and they got to listen to me that what I say, like, that won't go to the skin very well, or I need the light fastest to work this way, I need it to last this long, or whatever it is. We got to work together. So I kind of look at this as the same way. It's like, okay, yes, you have to regulate us. You got to make sure that we're safe. 40%, 6% of the Americans are getting tattooed. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
That's a big risk. I get it, but we are serious about this. We have, we do protect our own. We do our own research and development and everything like this. We have a lot of headway into this, and they're looking for that information. And it's nice to see that, like, we have organizations and groups and certain people that are willing to essentially step up, not only for free, but like it's costing a lot of people money to make sure that we are doing this right, and they're willing to sacrifice all that because they do understand that, like, we don't want what happened in Europe to come back to us. We don't want to, once, you know, a law passes, as we talked about before, if it's, you know, out of whack or it's a little ridiculous, they might make adjustments later, but it's going to take so much, it's going to take so long to come back from that it's going to do damage. So we want to make sure that we're ahead of the ball, essentially, you know.
The first time.
Right.
And if you're right, man. Anything government, I like to use the analogy, government's like lava. Like, it moves slow.
Right.
And it moves so slow, it's almost like I'll lull you into complacency until it touches you. Right? Then it's changed you forever, right? And if we wait until that lava is upon us, we gotta, be changed forever and work diligently and take forever just to come back from that. And I think you even mentioned earlier, Australia is looking at the same kind of regulations as REACH, and that's scary.
Yeah.
And I even heard maybe potentially Canada, right? So these places are popping up, and we've been given this opportunity to be our own subject matter experts.
Yeah.
And you relayed people who go forth and sacrifice their personal time and energy and resources to do this. And I just want to give a shout out to like APT, because I know like personally, Pat Sinatra, she's been there since 1992, tattooing since 76. Sean Anderson is an animal. This guy still tattoos 5 days a week, like full days, still tattoos with coils, does everything, the traditional way, but then on his free time is working to protect us as tattoo artists, and there's no pay for that other than just the appreciation for something he loves. And that's what the ABT is about. And that's, one of my goals was to come and also tell your followers that, joining the APT is one of the most effective ways that we can work together as an industry right now, because again, the government does recognize them as a legitimate constituent base, and by building up its numbers and its group, then it can start to be a true trade organization that has a unified goal, which is to protect tattooing, and never have served, or at least have I known of another organization that cares about tattooing as much as APT. And through that vehicle, we can also be prepared for the future of tattooing. And speaking of other organizations, I know you've recently been invited and involved with the product safety committee.
Right. Yeah, with Sean Brown and those guys. Yeah. And it was nice to see that, where you're talking about, like, some of the bigger companies in the industry are getting together in the same Zoom room, in a sense, but are willing to talk to each other and work with each other and really take this on. And that's the thing, is that when you see competing companies come together and try to work towards, a common goal, you got to take that serious, because if they're taking it serious, some of those guys are direct competitors, and John Brown, works for Eternal, and I obviously own Empire, but we can be the same room. We can still talk about the future of tattooing and stuff like that. So it is nice to see that there are organizations like that are willing to come together and just, just really put their differences aside for the common good, in a sense. So that to me made me take this a little bit more serious, and said, like, okay, so there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way through this, and we can have a voice. We can have a designated place for the government to talk to, and I see it a lot of progress since like the last couple of years when it started kind of getting a little heavier. And for me, that makes me feel a lot more comfortable. Seeing the APT involved definitely makes me feel a lot more comfortable. I've known about them my whole 20-year career. I've seen them really push, they got a lot of backlash over the years for pushing the regulations, or not pushing the regulations, but like pushing us to work within the regulations in a sense, but they help transition us smoothly instead of like this abrupt stop or this abrupt reality check in a sense. And I personally appreciate that. It wouldn't have gone that smooth. It wouldn't have without them.
Speaking of that, you're since back in the 90s when APT was formed, it was because the government wanted the tattoo industry to start wearing gloves, right? Taking patent industry was like,
the pirate thing, yeah.
And I love to share that story about an old tattooer who loved to tattoo without gloves, And regardless what the government said, it was a peer, friend that said, bro, you'd have to tie the felt link. That's what made him don it, and actually start doing that. And that's what we have now, is you still have this organization, APT, that's representing the practitioner, that's willing to, through peer pressure or through guidance and through, communicating with each other, help bring the practitioners together so we can have a unified voice and be taken serious by the government.
Right.
You have the product safety committee, which is the manufacturers, not just manufacturers, all manufacturers.
Right.
Anyone that's dealing with our products coming together. And now we have this two organizations coming to unify ourselves to move forward to, write our own destiny.
Yeah.
Inform our regulations, guide our regulations in a way that makes sense for us in the future.
Right. And they're being, led by the former FDA agents and stuff like that. And it seems like a good team. And it seems like the tattoo industry, if we do anything well, we do accept each other. If you look at any other industry, if you don't look like a hairstylist or something like that, you're not as well accepted, or the bartenders, all this kind of stuff. Like tattooers, we literally all look very different. It's hard to tell. We all come from our own backgrounds. We have our own reasons and all that stuff, but we definitely do well as far as especially now, I can walk into a tattoo shop and say, "What up, guys? I'm a tattoo artist." We couldn't do that back in the day, but today, that's the nice thing about the way the industry has evolved and grown up in a sense. And I keep saying that, and it really is true. We've matured a lot over the years, and it's really good to see that.
The analogy, we grown up, and as you grow up, you gotta learn to pay bills, and pay your taxes and such, and be smart stuff.
Got an adult,
adult, and with that comes, through doing those adulting things and being involved with our future regulations will just provide a better future for the next generation.
Absolutely.
That's what we want to do. And,
we want to maintain control too. I know other industries. One thing I love about the tattoo industry is that we don't rape each other. You know what I mean? So I know other industries are I'm going to charge this much because I can, and I want to make all the money and blah, blah, blah. We're not like that. We can make the cost of inks whatever we want. Nobody really knows what the cost is. And I know cosmetic inks are ridiculously expensive, really, really expensive, but we don't do that to each other. We say, all right, you're a tattoo artist, I'm a tattoo artist. These are fair prices kind of deal. And we did that with machines. We did that with needles. We do that with pigment. We've done it with everything. We built everything in our industry, and we didn't rape each other to do it. And that's what I appreciate about this industry. So I don't want outside influencers coming in, making ink so expensive, making needles so expensive, that it's just going to be ridiculous. And we're going to have to pay the prices, because those are the prices, because the cost has gone up because of all these regulations or anything like that. I want to have, if there's going to be regulations, totally cool. Make them legit. That's all I care about. Don't make them ridiculous. Don't put us into medical or this, everything medical is super expensive, I want it to be I want to have a fair shake. Don't put me into the adult world with all this debt and all this, and then have some giant corporate company come in and smash all the little guys. You know what I mean? We can continue to make our own inks. We can continue to make our own machines and needles, but we can also continue to regulate our own pricing and not have everything so expensive. Anytime the government gets involved, everything gets a little bit more expensive. We kind of all realize that. But if we have a hand in it, we can kind of regulate how expensive that's going to be. To me, that's important.
Yeah. And all that takes, what that really is, just for the little guy or the individuals.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. It's just a unified voice, a unified, cohesive voice that's being represented well, and then they will listen to it. That's just the nature of government politics. And again, coming back to the opportunity we've been given, in the sense that this is still fairly new. The information about MOCRA is getting out already, and it's starting to be taken more serious, and people are acknowledging it. And we're also giving practitioners and manufacturers an easy way to help. Like I said, if you're a tattoo artist, join the APT. Come on to the body art regulation support system. Quick and easy information. If you're a manufacturer, join the body art regulation support system. Will connect you with the product safety committee.
All right.
And these are just ways to come together and communicate on a platform, so you can still tattoo and you can still focus on your day job, right? But you can communicate through this platform, know what's going on in real time, so we can act with action, sign petitions if need be, alert you to what's going on, simultaneously help you if you're having issues with regulations in your state. We can lend advice, lend support, right?
And experience, yeah. We
can do that, and this costs nothing other than just, a little bit of time to go online.
Sure.
And it's as simple as that, but as pivotal as that.
Yeah.
So cool, man. I just always wanted to. I always like to leave on this before I say. I just want to thank you again for having me out.
Absolutely.
And share with me, bring me into your casa, and enjoying the hospitality. I'm going to be sharing some footage involving the process of making some payments. Really cool. Thank you. So I'd love to finish on this, man, because I know that you can agree that tattooing has been amazing in your life, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's given us everything. It's allowed us to support our families, make a great living. Personally, it has saved my life. It's kept me from doing the stuff that I should.
Right.
And now tattooing needs us. Right?
Yeah.
Now it's time for us to get back to tattooing. And I think the most effective way that we can help tattooing right now is if you're a practitioner, join the APT, join the body art regulation support system. If you're in your manufacturer, get information on that same platform about the product safety committee. And I believe we can come together and safeguard tattooing that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you honestly for coming out here. It's a long flight to Little Apples in Wisconsin from New Mexico, and you're not getting paid to come out here. You're sacrificing this, and it's honestly, that does mean a lot, because this industry, this is all I've ever known. This is all I'm going to know. I can't do anything else. So I appreciate people like you wanting to put forth the time and the energy to do this kind of stuff. So I feel like you're helping me protect my industry, and I have a lot of faith in the tattoo industry. I know that we'll come together and it'll be good.
All right, brother.
Cool. Sounds good.
So I'd love to finish with this, man. Tattooing has been amazing.
Damn, dude, that was fucking loud. I was like, we're getting shot at.